Michael Spicher, thanks for joining me on the Circularists video
Thank
series.
you.
Um, I was intrigued. We've had a chat, right? We've had one conversation, and I was absolutely enthralled to learn that sustainability and aesthetics are related and that they're important to one another. So, would you like to share with our audience who you are, what you're working on, and all about aesthetics in sustainability?
Sure. First of all, I'm a trained philosopher and I'm also a writer. I'm based in Boston, and I write, speak, and teach primarily about aesthetics, but I also, do other things more generally with philosophy. But my passion for aesthetics grew out of my previous work as an artist and or interest in art, and then I kind of realized that aesthetics for too long has been kind of connected with art, and it actually extends far beyond that. It's a common thing to all of to all of humanity. It's something that all human beings have experienced, even if all people don't make art, and even if some people may not have as much of an appreciation for art, but we all care about things involving aesthetics. And even if we don't realize it, aesthetics affects our well-being. And so most of my work revolves around basically pushing ideas in aesthetics and helping people realize how important it actually is to human flourishing, really.
Wow. So help us understand this word aesthetics, because mainstream has created a definition in my mind. You know, are they good looking? Is that appealing to me? Do I like this dress? Does my bum look big in this? But what is aesthetics? What are you
And it's in its most broadest idea, it has to do with um, sense experience. It comes from a Greek word that involves, sense experience. It was brought into more contemporary usage in the 18th century with Alexander Baumgarten, a philosopher in Germany, who wanted to distinguish between um, the higher faculties of logic, reason, and science, and the lower faculties, or the lower ways of understanding and learning about the world, which would be the senses and feelings. And I think he made this distinction to sort of prioritize the higher faculties, like these are the better things and more accurate. But we also have these other things which are important. But I actually don't like that explanation. I prefer common and specific ways of understanding the world. Not everyone is going to learn advanced mathematics and advanced science as a way of understanding the world, but everyone has aesthetic experiences. And so, to me, the distinction is more that aesthetics connects all of us, whereas people that are at the highest levels of math and science, I'm just using math and science as examples, there's other things involved as well, but um, there's only a small group of people that maybe can understand some of those really, really high level compared to the rest of us. Whereas aesthetics connects all of us, no matter who you are and where you are and what your level of knowledge is.
Is this because aesthetics carry sort of information, mathematical information, physics information? Is that what you're saying? That we all see stuff that actually has some sort of maths or science or logic running through it? Is that what was?
No, not necessarily. There might be some truth to that, but just that there's two different ways of, or two different areas of human knowledge and experience, and aesthetics is more common to all of us. And some of these other academic um, branches of knowledge are much more specific and focused, and only some people have those. It's not even necessarily a matter of capability. It's just a matter of, we don't all study the same thing. But aesthetics connects all of us to each other and to our world, I think.
for sure, for sure. So what are you working on now, and where's your work going to take you?
Uh, I'm currently working on finishing the last leg of a book project on digital fashion, which I'm co-editing with two others. We're in the final lap. We're about to turn in our final manuscript soon, and it will be out next May. The book will be a series of essays on the theory, practice, and issues of digital fashion. And I'm also beginning work on a book on practical aesthetics, which in my own discipline of philosophy, aesthetics is often focused, the two contexts people focus on are art and nature, with art being the largest. And I think aesthetics goes, as I've kind of already basically said, aesthetics goes way beyond that. So this book would explore how aesthetics impacts things like business, law, issues like climate change and prison reform, and so on. All these other practical contexts that often get unnoticed or less discussed. And then I also regularly write for Beauty Matter, which is a resource for the beauty industry.
You said something there, aesthetics and prison reform. Did you say prison reform?
Yes.
Okay, can you tell us a bit about that?
The basic idea for me is, if aesthetic experience is something necessary for all people for their humanity, then depriving incarcerated persons of aesthetic experience, most prisons are notoriously ugly, especially in the US and other places, but depriving incarcerated persons of aesthetic experience hinders any chance that they can remain human or keep a part of their humanity while incarcerated.
Right.
And I think it's not the only thing, for sure. It's just with aesthetics, I would never say it's the only thing. And I think most issues are not one solution issues anyway, but it's something that needs to be paired with other solutions. Art making in prison has been shown to have a hugely positive impact on those in prison. And so if we would allow that there to be some aesthetic element, I think that it would impact positively. I'm not saying it would change every single thing about being incarcerated, but just that it would help, at least in some way. It would be one part of the solution to reduce recidivism rates.
Right. And is this because it's impacting on well-being and mental health and things like anxiety and mood?
Yeah, and actually the one thing I would say too is some people might have the attitude, well, who cares? They're prisoners. They're criminals. The one group of people that is often ignored in any discussions of prison reform are the guards, who have high rates of like depression and suicidal ideations and different things, because the environment, I'm sure there's other factors too, but the environment itself is oppressive. And so when you're working in that environment, it becomes oppressive as well.
I can see that. So let's talk about nature. Let's talk about aesthetics in nature, because as a layperson, going for walks, seeing a beautiful vista changes my physiology. It changes how I feel. It changes the next day and maybe the next week. And if we've gone on holiday to somewhere amazing, it could change the rest of that year in terms of how we carry ourselves. So what's going on there? Why is all of this so important? What does nature give us that's so important to us?
I think I think it gives us we were designed, or not designed. I mean, I don't mean that to sound to imply any religious, but we evolved and were designed to be in nature, and we are now spending about 90% of our time in buildings,
Boxes.
and yeah, and so nature has, I think it's partly the nature itself, like getting fresh air. But I think it's also that nature has a more organic. I mean, that's sort of maybe redundant sounding, but our boxes are very angular, and we that does not bode well for our psyche. There's been research to suggest that we prefer curvature even in architecture. So I think nature gets us back to that, and that's partly why. Like when you go for a walk, if you go for a hike in the woods, and there's a kind of a path that sort of evolved over time, people hiking it, it's often not a straight line like our city streets.
Yes.
It's often like a curved path.
Yes.
And all those things play into I mean, there are different theories about how it's based on our evolutionary development and different things like that, but whatever the reason is, it tends to make us more comfortable and more relaxed, whereas the boxes and the sharp angles are much more of a hindrance to that.
You know what interests me there in what you're saying? So nature presents us with more curves rather than jagged, hard corners and sharp lines. And you look at Earth, the shape of the Earth and the orbit of the planets, and it's all circular and moving, rhythmic. And then you talk about the boxes we live in, our homes, they're jagged and sharp corners. And then you look at the economy, the Western economies that have been created, and the linear system, which is a hard line through the circular nature of systems. So we're kind of living a very jagged, linear existence, aren't we? That runs contrary in so many different ways to our environment.
Yeah, we've become kind of we keep wanting this bottom line without any thought of the impact that it has, and it's actually to me it's actually very short-sighted. A lot of companies that provide people, especially more now, what the trends that we're sort of seeing are that people want an experience. They don't want to just go to a store, especially when you're competing with online shopping, which often has better sales and stuff. People want an experience when they walk into a store, and the companies that care about the aesthetics of how they present themselves and the actual environment of the store are generally speaking doing better,
Right.
or have a higher chance of longevity. I mean, there are other factors at work, of course, just like with anything, but I do think caring about the aesthetics of it really does make a stronger case, because people buy things according to their feelings. They don't. That's why they have impulse buys.
Yes.
Impulse buys wouldn't work if we didn't buy things according to our feelings.
Right. Retail therapy, and we know where that gets us. But no, I hear that. And so you mentioned also earlier digital fashion, and I'm really curious about this. So who's buying that? Who's wearing that? How do you wear it? How does this work?
So digital fashion often feels like something from another world, or a movie, especially when you learn that toward the end of 2019, the first fully digital fashion garment was sold for $9,500. And so there's a strange component like that, but there's also a really practical component. People young, especially people in the younger generation of Gen Z, care more about, or tend to care more about, their online presence than their physical presence. Because how they present themselves online, it's a permanent thing. Like people can constantly find it.
Yeah.
So a lot of people with, especially with Instagram culture and TikTok, and a lot of visual social media, people will frequently buy a garment, wear it for the photo, and then send it back and get a refund. And if on one hand you're thinking, okay, that's not a big deal, but what people have pointed out is many times the company does not resell the garment, even though you get your refund. And you wore it once, the tags are still on it, everything's fine. A lot of times they don't resell it. A lot of times they just trash it. There's huge, you can Google like huge clothing landfills and just see mountains of fabrics. And so digital fashion offers, of course, we're gonna still be wearing real physical clothing. No one is saying that, but digital fashion offers an opportunity for when you want a garment that is only ever going to appear online. Instead of buying a physical garment that eventually becomes landfill, you buy a digital garment, and either for a two-dimensional photo where designers basically fit the garment to your body, digitally, of course, and then send you the photo back, or 3D. The 3D technology is still in works. It's a little bit choppy still, but it's getting there. But digital fashion also comes from a sort of developed in the world of video games.
Right.
As soon as your character in a video game was able to switch outfits, digital fashion was essentially born.
Right. Do you know why I relate to that so well? My son is a competitive esports player, gamer. And it matters to him so much, his skins, they call them skins.
Yeah.
You buy this new outfit and footwear and the whole thing. And he spends money. He spends my money on it.
Yeah.
And it's a real thing. So I do relate to what you're saying. And I'm also thinking about my online identity, and I could buy digital clothes if I'm not going to be there in person.
Well, and another thing that, like, one of the biggest problems with fashion, and this kind of connects back to beauty and sustainability, is overproduction. And I've actually started seeing this a little bit more with books, where you buy the book, it's not printed, it prints, and then they ship it to you, and it's not some cheap thing either. So I think that's going to happen with fashion, where you'll be able to try it on digitally. They already have mirrors that are basically screens, and they put different garments on you. It's not as widespread yet, but they already exist. And so, but I think you're going to be able to do that on your own computer at home, where you upload some kind of I don't know how the technology will work, but there'll be an image of you on the screen that is your exact proportions. And so let's say you get the shirt and you're like, oh, I kind of want it an inch longer, or I want it slightly shorter, or I want the shoulders taken in. You'll be able to make those adjustments on the digital thing, and then they will make it. And that will cut down on overproduction, because they won't make it until you actually order it. And because you had the chance to do all these different adjustments, it should be the case that it fits better. And because sometimes with things like medium and large, some companies you're like, well, I'm a medium in this company, but I'm a large in this company because it's cut differently. But now that won't even be a factor. You'll be able to fit things exactly to your body, because it'll be like looking in a mirror. Now, obviously, even mirrors are a little bit limited. Sometimes you see something in a mirror and then you bring it home and you actually don't like it as much as you thought. So there are still, things will still change, but I think it would significantly cut down on
overproduction, and also on returns, because depending on the brand you're talking to, returns can run up to 40% of sales, which is ridiculous. And then you've got carbon emissions of that garment going out and coming back. So it's a bit of a mess.
And they could even, there's even a possibility of doing like a marketplace kind of thing, where let's say I order a garment that is made, like I ordered a new shirt and it's made, like I try it on digitally and then it's made for me, and then I decide actually I just don't like it as much. Then I can there could already be a system built in, like maybe like an eBay type thing where I upload the garment and say, I
Absolutely.
tried this, it didn't quite work. Here's the
Love,
size, you
love,
know,
yes.
and then maybe I lose $5 on the deal or something even, but it's better than losing all of it. Like I think there's a lot of potential here for this, and and
I'm
that's
so excited by all of this that you're sharing. It makes perfect sense, and there's so much opportunity in there. So Michael, I want to touch on one last thing. So I recently made a video and I asked the question, who wakes up in the morning and says to themselves, the world's in trouble, the impacts of climate change are going to be devastating. I'm going to the front line and I'm going to do something about it. I'm going to save humanity from this. Who wakes up and does that? You did. Can you tell us why did you? What were you thinking?
well, I think insofar, especially from my perspective, coming from aesthetics, insofar as aesthetics is common to all of us, I think the way it impacts everything is for all of us. Architects, for example, they say that the most sustainable building is the one that's already made.
Right.
It's a very common saying in sustainable architecture. So if you make a really, really ugly building, nobody wants to reuse it.
Right.
So if you make a beautiful building, it's more, there are exceptions, of course, but it's more likely to be reused.
Right.
And repurposed, even if its original function disappeared. So I think it's up to all of us to make quality. We kind of got off on this mass production, and maybe there were some good benefits of it initially. Like fast fashion, for example, was praised initially as being a very equitable thing, and now it's become a huge burden.
Absolutely.
Instead of having two fashion lines a year, some of the companies have 24, two a month,
Right.
or even more than that, I've heard. So
Yeah.
it's basically up to all of us to figure out ways of whatever it is we're doing, how to be more efficient and how to have higher quality, so that whatever it is we make or do has long lasting. It's also just better for business to have higher quality products that don't break.
Absolutely. The thing that saddens me greatly is that we have a generation that actually don't have any idea what a quality garment looks and feels like to wear.
There was a recent article, I think it was in the New York Times, that said the golden age of thrifting is over because the quality of garments are so bad that you can't give them to Goodwill and they can't do anything with it.
Not pass them down. There won't be hand-me-downs or heirlooms, will they?
Yeah, I mean, garments just don't last, and even like a lot of the big fashion people, they actually don't support what they write about how to develop your own style or things like that. They actually don't. They often praise the very traditional or classic garments over the new fad, and so it's kind of strange to me that we've kind of gotten to this point in the first place.
So what's your vision? So to close, a final thought then, what's your vision? What would you like? What change would you like to see in the world that you have a hand in?
I guess I would like to, when I talk about aesthetics, I think most of what I'm doing isn't something necessarily entirely new. It's more, sometimes I feel like all I'm doing is reminding people, you care about beauty, stop pretending you don't. It's better for you. The way to see it is, imagine a world wholly deprived of aesthetic qualities. Just imagine some dystopian movie. It's always ugly. It's never a place that's beautiful.
Yes.
And if you want that, which I know no one really does, even though we differ about the specific things we do want. Some people might prefer blue and some people might prefer red and so on. But we all care about aesthetics. And so I think we need to stop ignoring it. We need to start putting it in the initial conversations for all solutions for sustainability. And other issues as well. But and we need to start pairing it with that, because I think the only way we're going to convince people to move is by helping them feel it, by appealing to their feelings. And I think that's what's going to shift the needle more than anything else.
I find it so fascinating talking to you. I've loved our conversation. I hope you'll come back and talk to me again. A bit further down
Definitely.
the road, and we can share what's new and what's developing. But thank you so much, Michael Spicher.
Thank you, Karen.
And we'll see you again on another episode of The Circularists, I'm sure.
Definitely. Bye-bye.